What was something you did as a child that is now that funny story your parents tell? My mom was driving somewhere with my little brother and I in the backseat. I was maybe 5, which would have made him around 3 or 4. We were chattering with each other and she'd kind of just tuned us out to drive. At some point she heard something though that made her tune back in. Okay, hold real still. At that point it dawned on her what we had been discussing. She swerved the car over to the side of the road, turned, and screamed in oh. I had a hammer swung back, ready to knock all of my baby brother's teeth out as he eagerly bared them for me. My dad had left a hammer under the seat of the car, and I'd found it, and somehow convinced my brother to let me knock all of his teeth out for tooth fairy money, so that we could be rich. My brother and I once built a road for our toy cars, out of sliced sausage and jam. When learning to ride a bike I insisted on only going back downhill with the wind behind me. Now if I do anything my parents will say make sure you're going downhill with the wind behind you. When I was 2 to 3 years old, my mom kept finding her shoes being wet in the closet. Turns out I would run in there and peel over her shoes to try and get her to not leave for work. Took them like 6 months to figure it out. I was a sneaky pisser. When I was young, like 2 or 3 I would walk around our neighborhood and walk in the neighbor's house and sit at their kitchen table until they came in and gave me a pudding cup. They didn't eat them and would buy them exclusively for when I would come over. Despite the breaking in, I still wouldn't help myself to the food until it was offered. I've heard my mom tell this story countless times. She told me to stop playing and come eat dinner and I responded by saying I already ate. When? Yesterday. I don't remember this happening, but my mom tells me about it every once in a while, cause she gets a good laugh out of it. I took ballet classes when I was really young, around 3 to 5 years old. One time my ballet teacher gathered us all in a circle to go around and mention something we are grateful for. All the other girls said something, like they were grateful for their mum or dad or their pet, but when it was my turn I said that I was thankful for slugs. Now I'm about to graduate with a bachelor's in biology, and I'm still just as grateful for slugs. My mom has a degenerative spine disease and I remember when I was around 5, I learned in Sunday school that we will be made perfect in heaven. I was really excited that my mom's back would be perfect in heaven and that she would be able to run and play with me. I told everyone that someday my mom's back wouldn't hurt. Soon after, we went to Walmart and one of the greeters was missing a hand. Apparently, I ran up to the man, put my hand on his stump, locked eyes with him, and said in heaven, you will have your hand back, and you'll be perfect. He actually started crying a little and hugged me, but at the time, my mom was horrified that I would grab a stranger like that without any hesitation. When I was 3 or 4, I walked in on my dad peeing in the bathroom because he left the door open back then. And I'm told I did a double take, then got closer to get a better look. I was awestruck. Then I suddenly bolt out of the bathroom shouting mommy, mommy, dad has got a lot of meat. Well, he proceeds to piss all over the toilet because he's doubled over with laughter and my mom is chuckling in the living room and laughs harder when she hears his hysterical fit from the bathroom. I was playing around in our front yard when I was around 3 years old while my parents were on the front porch reading the newspaper together. Off in the distance, they heard me say here kitty kitty, such a pretty kitty. At first they ignored me and just kept reading together, I guess thinking I was just using my imagination or something. Eventually, my mom glanced over at me and immediately proceeded to scream at me. I quickly dropped a dead possum, covered in ants, and began crying because my mom yelled at me. They got my eyes checked after that. There was nothing wrong with them. I was just a very confused 3-year-old. I'm tired. Can't you just do it yourself? Apparently, I said that when I was in preschool while one of my teachers was teaching me how to write lol. When I was younger, my mom, my grandma and I went to get some ice cream. Being the unattentive little 3-year-old that I was, I let the ice cream fall. My mom bought me another cone, handed it to me carefully, and said, keep your eye on your ice cream. And I did. I face planted the ice cream. Back during the cyanide in Tylenol scare back in 1982, my older brother took me trick-or-treating on Halloween. went something like this. Me, trick or treat. Neighbor, gives me candy. Brother, now what do you say? Me, it better not have any cyanide in it. I was 4 when my parents suddenly heard me crying on the beach and running around, spooked. I was screaming back quote the beast the beast the beast again and again. Honestly, my parents thought I had a heat stroke until they saw the really tiny crab, a bit over 2 inch, that was chasing me. It was running, following me around, probably proud to be able to scare such a big monster. Not my proudest moment. I went up to our fat neighbor, stuck my belly out, and said now I look like you. Mom was humiliated. I'd see my brother standing up to pee, so I tried to give it a shot. When I was 3 or 4, lost control. Started screaming. Pee went everywhere like an out of control firehouse. There was nothing my parents could do but watch and wait for it to be over. When puberty reared its ugly head, I started calling phone sex lines. First just the 800 numbers. The voices drove me crazy, but always asked for credit cards, so I got bored quickly. Then I discovered 900 numbers. Stupid teenage me used a fake name and just assumed when they sent the bill my parents should see the name of someone who didn't live there and toss the mail. Little did I know it was being charged directly to our telephone bill. Fast forward to next billing cycle and suddenly I'm being yelled at for a 1k plus phone bill. Over the years they typically like to bring it up in conversation when I'm introducing them to women I'm seeing. I apparently spent whole days digging out all the plants in the garden and replanting them upside down. Every time my parents fixed the garden I went back and did it again. They gave up on having flowers for the duration of my childhood. When I was just learning how to speak, I noticed the way people referred to me in a sentence and assumed that was how I was supposed to refer to myself as well. So I'd always refer to myself as you. I obviously didn't quite understand how pronouns, based on point of view, worked yet. My parents loved mentioning a particular dialogue between myself and my grandpa at that age. Me, you want to go outside? Grandpa, I want to go outside? Me, okay. As a toddler I never crawled like other kids. I just rolled around. I would lay down on my stomach and just roll. I was around 11 years old and stayed home from school because I was sick. I'm admittedly a huge hypochondriac, so what better to do on my day off than to hop on WebMD and find out why I'm so sick. After 5 minutes of research I had pinned it down to one thing that it absolutely had to be: ovarian cancer. I called up my mom, who's a nurse, and told her the devastating news. I was met with hysterical laughter. There I'm sitting in bed heartbroken that my own mother is laughing at my inevitable demise. And that's the day that I found out that men don't get ovarian cancer. After the flight back from adopting me, my mom went into the airport restroom to change me. I immediately pooped in the new diaper, and the next one, and the next one. She ended up going through all the diapers she had in her carry-on and had to use a shirt to get out of the bathroom so she could help my dad find our luggage that had more diapers. Now I'm the poopomatic. As a toddler, every time I got into an area that would echo even the slightest, that is hotels, large restaurants, malls, I would moo at the top of my lungs, earned the unflattering nickname, Meggy Moo Moo. I was coming to grips with swear words. My dad was filming me, and I start singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, expect I change the words to Twinkle Twinkle, Little Bastard. Bastard, bastard, twinkle bastard. My dad, what did you just say? Me, cat. When I was 3 I woke up early Christmas morning and opened all of the gifts under the tree. My parents had to kind of guess who got what because they were all jumbled together. My grandmother loved this story. She and my family loved it enough that they told it at her funeral. I'm 21 now, but when I was about 4, I had gotten up in the middle of the night and gone downstairs to mess around. I decided to play with the phone. Then, I decided I should use my recently acquired phone skills to call my grandmother. Her number was one of the first ones I ever memorized. Mind you, it was like 2:30 in the morning by that point. So my grandmother actually got up and answered the phone, thinking it had to be important if someone was calling at this time. Nope. She answered the phone, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "Mamor, what are you doing up?" in my scoldy kid voice. My family thinks it's pretty funny. At around 3 years old, I got curious about my dog's food, so I sat myself down in front of her food bowl and just started stuffing my face with it. After a few minutes, my mom, struggling to keep a straight face, asked me if I would like to go with the rest of my family to get McDonald's, or if I wanted to keep eating dog food. I looked at her, cheeks stuffed with dry dog food, and said, "Dog food." 18 years later, I still remember what dog food tastes like, and still crave it occasionally, because life's weird like that, though I have never actually eaten it again. There was one night where my parents learned I knew how to escape my crib. From what they have told me, there was one night where I found a way out of my crib. I then crawled all the way downstairs and to the kitchen to get a jar of pickles. There was a pickle jar in the door of the fridge, and I took it out and began to carry it back upstairs to my room. However, upon getting upstairs, or sooner, I'm not sure, I discovered I couldn't open them. Imagine my mother's horror as I woke her, and my dad up holding a pickle jar saying one of the only words I knew, "Open." When I was a kid, I had one of those toy gavel that squeaked when you would hit something with it. One day, when I was about 4 or 5, I ran into the living room when my mom had a bunch of family and neighbors over. I hit the table with this toy 3 times, squeak, 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 and said, "Order, order" in the court. Everyone got silent and gave me their attention. I proudly exclaimed, "Peter Pan has a penis," and promptly ran out of the room. My mom says the entire room was dying for a good 5 minutes.